The sixth plenary meeting is called to order. The meeting will resume its consideration of Agenda Item 8, entitled Organization of Work. Notwithstanding the program of work as contained in INF 3, this afternoon the meeting will resume its consideration of sub-item G2 of Agenda Item 11 before considering the remaining items scheduled for the afternoon. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to proceed accordingly? I see no objection. It is so decided. The meeting has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 8. The meeting will now resume its consideration of sub-item G2, entitled Other Matters for Achieving the Objectives and Purpose of the Treaty, such as intercessional structure, for the implementation of the Treaty of Agenda Item 11, entitled Consideration of the Status and Operation of the Treaty and Other Matters Important for Achieving the Objectives and Purpose of the Treaty. Based on discussions this morning, in order to obtain consensus on the decisions related to the intercessional process, I've asked my friend of the President, Ambassador Lucy Duncan of New Zealand, to engage in consultations with states parties that have proposed amendments to Conference Room Paper CRP 6. And those consultations have concluded. On the basis of those consultations, I have circulated a revision of the proposal previously contained in sections 2A and J and L of Conference Paper CRP 6. Has been issued as Conference Room Paper CRP Addendum 1 and circulated to desk to desk to delegations. Delegation wish to take the floor at this stage? That doesn't seem to be the case, so it's my understanding that the meeting is now ready to proceed to the adoption. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt the proposal contained in Conference Room Paper TPNW/MSP/2022 CRP 6 Addendum 1. I see no objection. It is so decided. Let me express my gratitude to the flexibility of all the delegations and specifically to my friend of the chair, Ambassador Duncan of New Zealand. Thank you very much. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to conclude its consideration of sub-item G2 of Agenda Item 11 and Agenda Item 11 as a whole? I see no objection. It is so decided. Item 13, the preparations of the second meeting of states parties. The meeting will now consider Item 13, entitled Preparations for the second meeting of states parties, and delegations will recall that through a silent procedure that expired on 25th of May 2022 without objection, states parties decided to designate Mexico as the president for the second meeting of states parties. There will be more opportunities to applaud. Earlier today, the Secretariat circulated to states parties and signatory states a note verbal from the Permanent Mission of Mexico to the UN in New York, dated 21st of June 2022, indicating a preference to hold the second meeting of states parties during the period 27 November to 1st December 2023 at the UN headquarters in New York. I would like to now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Mexico.
Thank you very much, Chair. On behalf of the delegation of Mexico and the President-elect, Ambassador Juan Ramón de la Fuente, we are grateful for the confidence deposited in our country to deal with the second meeting of the states parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. We would like to thank Austria and Ambassador Alexander Zen for the great work of this first meeting, which has established a solid basis for our work in the future. Mexico takes on the presidency with the commitment to continuing with inclusive, substantive consultations prior to the meeting. We believe it is the way to make progress in the ambitious mandate we have adopted with regards to adopting decisions. This current meeting and the humanitarian aspect, which was very successful, shows more than ever the importance of eliminating nuclear weapons, given the increased risk of a nuclear explosion in a world in which nuclear weapons are becoming preeminent. That is why we have made this commitment. We know how important this treaty is to ban the threatened use or use of weapons of mass destruction, the most dangerous of all. That could entail catastrophic humanitarian impact, and we would like to thank the Gender Focal Point, the working groups, and we hope that we will have those groups established so that we can continue to work together. We believe that the treaty is still young. We will do everything possible to make it universal, and we will do our utmost to get all UN member states to join, and we're grateful for the efforts to continue constructive dialogue with those states that have reservations about it, and we would like to thank those who participated as observers to this meeting. Mexico acknowledges that the implementation of the treaty should maintain the collaborative spirit of work with states, civil society, victims, which provided the impetus for its adoption. There's a clear message of complementarity of the treaty with the nuclear non-proliferation architecture, especially the NPT as the cornerstone of disarmament, and also the CTBT and those treaties that establish nuclear weapon-free zones. We have the intention to work closely with you and Austria, as well as Kazakhstan, who will be chairing the third meeting of states parties. We believe we will move in the right direction and consolidate the treaty. With regards to the dates and the headquarters, Mexico understands the importance of keeping the political impetus going and the need for the institutional consolidation of the treaty in this regard. And with respect to this agenda item, we would like to suggest the following. Regarding the headquarters of the meeting, we have heard many delegations in informal consultations and at this first meeting of states parties, and there's a preference for the UN headquarters in New York. Mexico agrees that in this initial stage of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, we need as comprehensive attendance as possible, especially from developing countries, and therefore that could help in promoting the universalization of the treaty. It's also considered that holding it at the UN's main headquarters would show the link between the treaty and the organization, which is very important during the initial phases. Regarding dates, Mexico believes it is essential to maintain the momentum and visibility of the prohibition of nuclear weapons, bearing in mind the increasing risks of these weapons for the whole of humanity. We also think it is important to make up for lost time due to COVID. For that reason, we have been working with the Secretariat to identify options for the end of 2023, and we saw that 27th of November to the 1st of December 2023, as you suggested, this could be feasible. It would be in line with the spirit and letter of the treaty and for the organisation. That would give us enough time to carry out the substantive and preparatory work and would enable us to maintain momentum and really shore up our treaty. Mexico believes we need enough time to deal with the agenda and the work that we have to do at interinstitutional level, and the meeting would last a week. However, we could talk more in depth about duration in further consultations. We therefore propose that the second meeting of states parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons take place in New York from the 27th of November to the 1st of December 2023. We eagerly await the comments of delegations on these proposals, and should we find the necessary support, we hope to make that decision. Thank you.
I would like to thank the distinguished representative of Mexico. Before opening the floor for comments on the dates issue, we still have to formally do the election according to sub-item A of agenda item 2, elections of officers. Paragraph 3 of Rule 6 of the Rules of Procedure reads that the meeting of states parties shall elect the president of the next meeting or review conference, whichever is earlier, before the closure of the meeting, end of quote. Delegations will recall that through a silence procedure that expired on 25th May 2022 without objection, states parties decided to designate Mexico as the president of the second meeting of states parties, and yesterday evening the Secretariat circulated a note verbal from the Permanent Mission of Mexico to the UN in New York dated 7th of June, presenting the candidature of His Excellency Juan Ramón de la Fuente Ramirez, Permanent Representative of Mexico to the United Nations in New York for the position of President of the second meeting of states parties. So as there is only a single candidate for the position of President, may I take it that the meeting decides to dispense with the secret ballot for this election? I see no objection. We will now proceed with the election. May I take it is the wish of the meeting to elect Ambassador Juan Ramón de la Fuente Ramirez of Mexico as President of the second meeting of states parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. I see no objection. I said that there would be more opportunities to applaud. I would like to congratulate Ambassador de la Fuente Ramirez wholeheartedly on his election and wish him all the best as he leads the preparations for the second meeting of states parties, and I look forward to cooperate very closely with Mexico as we have done on many issues, including the TPNW over many years. I look forward to this. I now like to wish to open the floor for delegations if they wish to raise any item on the proposal raised by the distinguished representative of Mexico regarding venue and dates. So I can take the decision. The meeting has before it the proposal that the second meeting of states parties be held in the period of 27 November to 1st December 2023 at UN headquarters in New York. May I take it that it's the wish of the meeting to proceed accordingly? Yeah. It is so decided. The meeting will recall that through a silent procedure that expired on 1st June 2022, without objection, States Parties agreed that Kazakhstan would preside over the third meeting of States Parties. May I take it that it's the wish of the meeting to take note of this intersessional decision? I see no objection. It is so decided. I would like to congratulate also the delegation of Kazakhstan, and I think this demonstrates the sense of continuity and collaboration that we also spoke about in the morning. And this delegation, the Mexican delegation, looks forward to working closely with Kazakhstan and, of course, all other delegations. So wholehearted congratulations also from us. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to conclude its consideration of sub-item A? Sorry. Of course, I give the floor to the delegation of Kazakhstan. I apologize, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We all will miss the way how you presided over the whole process of preparations to the Vienna meeting, and we very much appreciate your teams and, of course, the Secretariat's important support. All of your hard work have done so far. We will learn from your experience, from your able leadership, and also I'd like to congratulate our distinguished colleagues from Mexico for their nomination to the presidency of the second meeting of States Parties. I assure them of our wholehearted support as they steer the next steps. At the same time, I assure our full readiness to assume the presidency of the third meeting of States Parties to the treaty and pledged our best efforts to fulfill all of our obligations. In the interest of continuity and effective follow-up, we propose to work with Austria and Mexico in the so-called Troika format after this meeting to progressively reach our goals. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and we very much appreciate all States Parties' support, and we will do our best to make the process continued, live, and to make our treaty universal. Thank you.
I would like to thank the representative of Kazakhstan and congratulate once again. I've been reminded by the Secretariat I've also need to close item 13. So may I take it it's the wish of the meeting to conclude its consideration of sub-item A of agenda item 2 and of agenda item 2 as a whole and of item 13. Is this okay? I see no objection. It is so decided. The meeting will now consider sub-item B entitled Report of the Credentials Committee, of agenda item 9 entitled Credentials of Representatives of the Meeting. And I give the floor to the Chair of the Credentials Committee, Mr. Karl Anthony Borg of Malta, to introduce the report of the committee as contained in document TPNW/NSP/2022/4. Please, Mr. Borg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Credentials Committee, I have the honor to introduce the report of the committee concerning the credentials of the representatives of States Parties to the first meeting of States Parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. This is contained in document TPNW/MSP/22/4. Having considered the credentials of the representatives at its second meeting on 22nd June 2022, the Credentials Committee adopted without a vote a draft resolution accepting the credentials. The committee also recommended to the plenary of the meeting the adoption of the draft resolution concerning credentials of representatives to the meeting contained in paragraph 14 of the report of the committee. I would like to note that since the meeting held yesterday of the Credentials Committee, Formal credentials were received by the Secretary General of the meeting regarding Benin, Chile, Côte d'Ivoire, Cuba, Ecuador, and El Salvador. The meeting is therefore requested to adopt the draft resolution approving the report of the Credentials Committee and accept the additional credentials submitted subsequent to the meeting of the Credentials Committee. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude to the other members of the committee, Paraguay, Guyana, Samoa, and Namibia, and to the Secretariat for facilitating our work. I also want to thank you, Mr. President, and your team, of course, for your work. Thank you.
I thank the chair of the Credentials Committee for his statement, and of course thank all the members of the Credentials Committee for their efforts. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt the draft resolution contained in paragraph 14 of the report of the Credentials Committee as contained in document TPNW/MSP/2022-4 and to accept the credentials submitted after the meeting. I see no objection. It is so decided. Thank you very much. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to conclude its consideration of sub-item B of agenda item 9 and of agenda item 9 as a whole? I see no objection. Thank you. The meeting will now consider agenda item 14 entitled Other Matters, and I'm asking whether any delegation wish to take the floor under this agenda item. Doesn't seem to be the case. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to conclude its consideration of agenda item 14? I see no objection. Thank you. The meeting will now resume its consideration of agenda item 15 entitled Adoption of the Final Report. Delegations have before them the following documents: Conference Room Paper TPNW/MSP/2022 CRP8, entitled Draft Vienna Declaration of the First Meeting of States Parties of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, Our Commitment to a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. Conference Room Paper TPNW/MSP/22 CRP7, entitled Draft Vienna Action Plan, and the draft report of the first meeting of States Parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition as contained in document TPNW/MSP/2022/L2. We will now consider the draft declaration. The draft Vienna Declaration of the first meeting of States Parties, Our Commitment to a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. Very early on, it had become clear in the consultations that States Parties expected the meeting to deliver a very strong message in support of the treaty and our common goal of a world free of nuclear weapons. The document is the result of a comprehensive consultation process, and once again I wish to thank delegations for their engagement and commitment in the cooperative spirit of the treaty. While there were very fast early agreement among delegations about large parts of the treaty, some few elements required further work during the first meeting of States Parties. And after careful consideration, I have decided to shorten the text in paragraph 4 and reflect only in the documents elements that were not previously contested. It is my view that the document before delegations represents now a careful balance of views expressed and is a very strong message in support of the treaty, our shared objectives, and conveys the spirit of urgency for the total elimination of nuclear weapons. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt the conference room paper TPNW/MSP/2022/CRP8, the draft Vienna Declaration of the first meeting of states parties of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, our commitment to a world free of nuclear weapons. And I see the delegation of South Africa has requested the floor. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and we would like to express our appreciation to you and your team, as well as other states parties that participated in discussions on this paper. We believe that we have reached an outcome that truly reflects a strong message in terms of the continued abhorrent possession of nuclear weapons and the illegitimacy of such weapons by those that continue to possess them. Mr. President, before you adopt, we had one suggestion which we raised earlier, which in order to reflect the global nature of this declaration and also the fact that it is centered in the UN system, we would have liked to propose that the title just be changed a little bit around. And although we're very appreciative of having this in Vienna, we thought that it might be useful to just refer to the declaration as the declaration of the first meeting of states parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons held in Vienna, just to make that point and that we are clear that this is centered in the UN and that we did have it here in Vienna. So we just wanted to make that proposal from the floor. Thank you very much.
I thank the delegation of South Africa for this statement. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt the declaration as orally amended by South Africa? I give the floor to the delegation of Mexico.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you, Chair, and we're grateful for your efforts with the declaration, bearing in mind what occurs with many conventions, for example, the Palermo Convention against transnational organized crime, that has Palermo in the title because it was a very important symbol. We also have the Convention of Mérida in Mexico, which is the Convention Against Corruption. And that doesn't mean it isn't universal. I think it shows how important the whole process is and the support provided by the country. So Mexico believes that, appeals to South Africa to keep the title, the Vienna Declaration, because at the end of the day, as Chancellor Schallenberg said a few days ago, when we started our work, there was a Vienna Pledge in 2014, and we have come a long way to get here. So as far as possible, my delegation would ask for us to keep the original title. Thank you.
I thank the delegation of Mexico. I give the floor to Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, the need for me to take the floor has been negated almost entirely by the Ambassador of Mexico. You said everything that I was about to say, but in a far more elegant way. But just again to say, I think there is precedent for political declarations of this nature to have the location where they were adopted to be included in the title, and I don't see anything that would take away from that by including Vienna here. So strong support from Ireland to retain the document's title as it currently stands. Thank you.
I see the delegation of Indonesia has requested the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, let me express our delegation appreciation to your efforts in navigating the process. And we are almost in the finish line. We really appreciate and welcome this final the draft, and hopefully we can adopt at this meeting. Regarding the proposal from the South Africa, my delegation is also share the views from delegation of Ireland and also Mexico that it would be very good if we can have something that can have a landmark and show the historical achievement from this meeting. So to have to add the place, the city that we are adopting this declaration in this regard, the Vienna, would be very much welcome by my delegation. I hope that delegation of South Africa can accept this. As I also hope that many delegations also can arrive at the consensus to have this important delegation be adopted. Just as a small technical issue, which is, I think, this paragraph, we have 16 paragraphs, Mr. President. So I noticed that we have 215 here. So just to be corrected, that the last one should be paragraph 16. That's all. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the delegation of Indonesia. I see Costa Rica has requested the floor as well. Please, Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I don't want to take up much time. I would like to support what Mexico said. In the multilateral system, when we have meetings outside UN HQ, we tend to identify them with the name of the city where we've met. I've met in Durban, Johannesburg, and those cities' names were used and for important topics such as human rights and the Durban process. So I think Austria's government has shown total commitment to the instrument and the process, and I think I would appeal to all of us to show consensus and call this the Vienna Declaration. I think it fully reveals Austria's commitment. Thank you.
I thank the delegation of Costa Rica. I recognize that Kazakhstan has requested the floor and Peru has requested the floor. And South Africa wants to come in again. Let me say that, of course, I really appreciate the comments that have been made. Of course, the ultimately important thing is the text that we adopt. So let's keep that in mind. I give the floor to the delegation of Kazakhstan to be followed by South Africa, asking South Africa if this is a strong point, in which case I would suggest that we don't prolong the discussion for too long. I give the floor first to Kazakhstan, to be followed by South Africa, to be followed by Peru. Please, Kazakhstan.
Thank you, Mr. President. We very much respect the position of all the states parties, and including our distinguished colleagues from South Africa. We be in a position to support them, but echoing the distinguished colleagues from Mexico, Indonesia, and Costa Rica, I'd like to support the initial proposal by the ambassador of Thailand to keep the document as the Vienna Declaration. And we also, I'd like to add to what has already been said, that we have a good precedent of Vienna conventions that we still follow and have these commitments and obligations. And we would like to keep this word if there is a consensus, and hope that all the delegations would be able to support it. Thank you.
I thank the delegation of Kazakhstan and now give the floor to the delegation of South Africa. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And we take note of the points that have been made. We would be remiss not to highlight the fact that when we discuss this issue and the venue of where we should hold this meeting, which is the first meeting of the states parties, that we were quite adamant that this is a UN conference. And the venue that we're currently sitting in has been designated a temporary UN conference. We also did not suggest that we should leave out the word Vienna. So I don't think there are, we hope there's no confusion about that. It's not that we would want to deny recognition of it taking place in Vienna, but what we do need to do is to reflect the fact that this declaration is a declaration of the meeting of states parties. It's not the declaration of a specific venue. It's not the declaration of a specific capital. Also, this is not a localized declaration. This is a document that has been negotiated by the broad UN member states, UN member states of the UN system. So, just to respond also to the pledge that was referred to by the ambassador of Mexico, actually was changed later to the humanitarian pledge, exactly for that reason, to reflect the global nature of what we are doing here. So again, we are not suggesting that we deny the fact that we indicate that this has taken place in Vienna. What we are asking is that we recognize that this is a global instrument and not a localized one. We do recognize that in certain instances, there are occasions where a declaration takes on the name. But our appeal would be, that this being the first meeting of states parties, that we stay true to the fact that this is a global mechanism. So once again, our proposal is that we refer to this as the declaration of the first meeting of states parties of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and that it was held in Vienna. I thank you.
I thank the delegation of South Africa. I give the floor to Peru, but I would ask that we, after that, conclude this discussion. Please, I give the floor to the delegation of Peru.
Thank you, Chair. I will just take a few seconds. I won't repeat what the arguments used by Costa Rica and others. I just want to add Peru's support to the position expressed by Mexico. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Peru. I wanted to thank all the delegations who have spoken out in favor of the title that was originally, as pointed out by the distinguished delegate of Kazakhstan, which was an original proposal from the delegation of Thailand. But I would now like to suggest that we conclude this discussion because, as I said before, the important thing is, of course, the content of the declaration. And I would suggest that we move to the adoption with the title as amended orally by the delegation of South Africa. So may I take it that it's the wish of the conference, that is a wish of the conference to adopt the conference room paper TPNW/MSP/2022 CRP8 as orally amended by South Africa, with the change of the number, as pointed out before by Indonesia, entitled Our Commitment to a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. I see no objection. It is so decided. This is a very nice moment. I thank all delegations for their cooperation and flexibility. Especially want to thank my team. The declaration will be reflected in Annex 1 of the report of this meeting. We will now consider the draft action plan. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt conference room paper TPNW/MSP/2022/CRP7, the draft Vienna action plan. I see no objection. It is so decided. Once again, thanks to all delegations for the tremendous work that went into the preparation of this document, the facilitators who have prepared the substance of the action plan extremely skillfully. So that is really a great collective accomplishment. We still have some procedural issues to go through too. We will now consider the draft report of the first meeting of states parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW/MSP/2022 L2. The report contains a factual reflection of the work of our meeting, and we will consider it section by section. Where is it? No, the report. Here it is. I recognize the delegation of the Philippines. No, sorry. There was a misunderstanding. I apologize. The meeting will now turn to section 1, entitled Introduction. This section contains information related to the convening of the meeting. Are there any comments? May I take it that it's the wish of the meeting to adopt section 1? I see no objection. It is so decided. We will now turn to section 2, entitled Organizational Matters. Sections A to F reflect information on the opening and duration of the meeting, the rules of procedure, the agenda and organization of work, the officers, the confirmation of the Secretary General of the meeting, and documentation. Paragraph 11 will be amended to reflect the election of Ambassador Juan Ramón de la Fuente Ramirez of Mexico as President of the second meeting of states parties. A paragraph will be added after 11 to reflect the intercessional decision on the designation of Kazakhstan as President of the third meeting of states parties. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt section 2 as orally amended? I see no objection. It is so decided. The meeting will now turn to section 3, entitled Credentials. In paragraph 14, I should like to correct the list of the members of the Credentials Committee, which should read as follows: Guyana, Malta, Namibia, Paraguay, and Samoa. Paragraph 15 will be amended to reflect the decision of the meeting to accept the formal credentials received by the Secretary General of the meeting after the meeting of the committee. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt section 3 as orally corrected and amended? I see no objection. It is so decided. We will now turn to section 4, entitled Attendance. This section contains information on the attendance of this meeting by states parties, observer states, international organizations, and non-governmental organizations. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt section 4 of the report? see anybody? I don't see any objection. It is so decided. The meeting will now turn to section 5, entitled Consideration of the Status and Operation of the Treaty and Other Matters Important for Achieving the Objectives and Purpose of the Treaty. And this section contains a factual reflection of our consideration of agenda items, item 11 and its sub-items. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt section 5? I see no objection. It is so decided. We will now turn to section 6, entitled Financial Matters, and this section reflects the fact that the meeting took note of its financial report, and paragraph 23 will be amended to reflect that this item was considered at the 5th meeting. This section will also be amended to include the second paragraph reflecting the intersessional decision related to the maximum assessment rate for the first meeting of states parties. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt section 6 as orally amended? I see no objection. It is so decided. The meeting will now turn to section 7, entitled Preparations for the second meeting of states parties. This section will be amended to reflect the decisions just taken on the dates and the venue of the second meeting, as well as the decision to defer all organizational questions for the intersessional period. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt section 7 as orally amended? I see no objection. It is so decided. We will now turn to section 8, entitled Consideration and Adoption of the Final Report. Of the final document of the meeting, I apologize. So we will now turn to section 8, Consideration and Adoption of the Final Document of the meeting. This section will be amended to reflect the adoption of the declaration as orally amended by South Africa, entitled Our Commitment to a World Free of Nuclear Weapons, as well as the Vienna Action Plan. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to adopt section 8 as orally amended? I see no objection. It is so decided. The meeting will now turn to the annexes of the report. The declaration, as just orally amended, will be reflected in Annex 1 of the report, and the Vienna Action Plan, just adopted, will be reflected in Annex 2 of the report. Other decisions throughout this meeting will be reflected in the Annex 3. May I take it it's the wish of the meeting to proceed accordingly? I see no objection. It is so decided. We will now consider the draft report TPNW MSP/2022 L2 as a whole, as orally amended and corrected. I propose that the meeting adopt its final report as orally amended and corrected, and authorize its president to finalize it in consultation with the Secretariat. And may I take it it's the wish of the meeting to proceed accordingly? I see no objection. It is so decided. So may I take it that it is the wish of the meeting to conclude its consideration of agenda item 15? I see no objection. It is so decided. The meeting will now turn to agenda item 16, closure of the meeting. Distinguished delegates, excellencies, dear colleagues, dear friends, I think we've achieved something truly historic. We set on course the implementation of our young and precious treaty, and we've done so with a bang. We came to Vienna to set up the structures for our work of the years ahead. And of course, there's much to do. But now, with our joint spirit of cooperation and inclusivity, I think we have raised the bar in our field. in a situation where multilateralism is very severely strained. As I said in the opening meeting, where every indicator on nuclear weapons is pointing in the wrong direction, we point very clearly in the right direction. We have shown our united determination to forge ahead, to make real progress on nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. We have adopted an impressive and ambitious action plan. We've set up an innovative, flexible, inclusive intersessional structure that ensures that all states parties can contribute and achieve maximum results without overburdening anyone. We have agreed a powerful and clear political declaration that we do not accept the status quo of the nuclear Damocles sword above us. So the path is prepared, and now, of course, the real work starts. So let us continue to work in this spirit and show the world what kind of progress is possible. So I want to close by having to thank, or being allowed to thank, a lot of actors. First of all delegations. I want to thank the ICRC. I want to thank civil society. I want to thank ICANN. I want to thank academia. Above all, I want to thank survivors and affected communities. We've set a new standard of working together closely and efficiently to advance our goals in the TPNW framework. We used what many thought would be a hindrance as an advantage. Working virtually during the pandemic. Thank you very much for the great cooperation on doing this, which allowed us to bring together experts from all around the world in the preparation for this meeting. My deep gratitude goes to the facilitators and friends of the President for their hard work and on the various work streams. Let me thank our friends from the Secretariat, headed by Chris King, who helped us through all these novelties and the challenges of organizing this meeting, which most of you don't know, but there are many. Let me thank also the observers, also those who have not quite yet made up their mind about the TPNW, but let me thank them for being here. And of course, I would like you to give a big hand to my colleagues, Team Austria in Vienna, Geneva, and New York. Such a privilege. And all that remains to be done is say, Viva Mexico. This meeting is closed.
Great job. Fantastic.